Beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat them, the more you go poopy in your pants. I'm sure many of you out there are familiar with Sega's Puyo Puyo franchise. It's one of their most popular franchise, and it seems like of the later 2010s and recent memory, Sega is doing a lot of effort to make the Puyo name a household name in Western-speaking territories. However, what I don't think people realize is that Puyo Puyo definitely has a very unique and storied history in Japan dating all the way back to the late 80s. A very crazy and storied history that had a lot of games, as you can see here, and so many games and so much content and so much popularity that it ended up tanking its original creator. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So in this week's video, we're going to be talking about the brief history of Puyo Puyo because it's a crazy one. So I hope you have fun with this video, but before I launch into the main content of the video, it'd be really killer if you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos. That really helps the channel grow. And if you're curious about me and my personal life here in Japan, be sure to follow me on the social media, Twitter, Instagram @zmangs. And with that out of the way, let's begin.
Puyo Puyo started as a spin-off to the Mado Monogatari series. Mado Monogatari was Compile's first Persian dungeon crawler series released for the MSX. Never heard of Mado Monogatari before? Well, don't worry. As far as I can tell, the series never left Japan, with the exception of one game that I'll get into later, which is a shame because there's a lot of games in the series. Even though RPGs were a popular genre back in the day, branching out into other styles of gaming wasn't a bad idea for Compile. From what I read, former Compile employee Kazunari Yonemitsu thought that puzzle games lacked character and decided to use the Mado Monogatari characters in a puzzle game. Thus, Puyo Puyo is born. The first Puyo game was released on the Famicom and MSX, and it really didn't take off. No one talks about the very first Puyo game, as it was quickly displaced by the arcade version, Puyo Puyo, which Sega published. Unlike other puzzle games that focused on endless modes, Puyo Puyo changed the focus to being a versus game, not too dissimilar to a fighting game. Add to that the characters and anime aesthetics, Puyo Puyo had two unique hooks that were new to puzzle games at the time. Add to that a solid Mega Drive port, and Puyo Puyo became a household name in Japan. While Compile focused on developing the main games and spin-offs with Puyo Puyo, Sega came in and started publishing the arcade titles and games on their own systems. Puyo Puyo 2 is the game that really propelled Puyo Puyo into stardom in Japan. In fact, one can even say that Puyo Puyo 2 for the Mega Drive was the killer app for the system in Japan. While Puyo Puyo was experiencing growth in Japan, why didn't we get it in Western-speaking territories? I mean, we did get Puyo Puyo, but as Kirby's Avalanche and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. And I could never find an exact reason why, but I think there were plans to bring Puyo Puyo over back in the day. If you have the Game Gear version of Puyo Puyo, and if you put it into an American Game Gear, you get Puzzlo Kids, a fully localized version of Puyo Puyo on the Game Gear. And it's been long rumored that Sega did translate the first arcade game but never released it outside of Japan. And those rumors were confirmed true with the Sega Ages port for Puyo Puyo 1, which you are seeing here on the Nintendo Switch that has an English translation. I couldn't find an exact reason, but I'm guessing Sega's Western divisions didn't think that Puyo had much of a chance in English-speaking territories. With that said, in Japan, Puyo was doing great, maybe a bit too great. After Puyo Puyo 2 became a smash hit, Compile killed anything that wasn't Puyo Puyo or Disk Station, and they put all their time and effort into those two things. Disk stations were small mail-order games for PCs at the time, if you've never heard of that before, which you probably haven't because those were really obscure games. Compile started really milking the cow with spin-offs and compilations for Puyo Puyo, a lot of them being mediocre and just blatant trend chasers. Puyo Puyo Da was a rhythm game, RL no Boken was a monster game not too dissimilar to Pokemon, and Puyo Wars was a strategy game. Hell, there was even a party game which I am sure is total dog shit. All this is between releasing Puyo mainline titles that expanded the gameplay and the lore of the series. We got two follow-ups to 2 with Puyo Puyo Sun and Puyo Puyo Yon. The thing about Sun and Yon is that neither game is quite as remembered as Puyo Puyo 2. 2 perfected the Puyo formula, and anything else just couldn't capture the attention of gamers at the time. It goes to show that, as many times as 2 has been ported, no one has been bothered to bring back Sun or Yon for the new game systems. As for all those spin-offs and whatnot, the writing was on the wall, it was foretold. Back in the early days of the franchise, Compile released 3 Nazo Puyo games for the Game Gear within the span of a year. And those were released before Tsuyo hit and became a smash hit.
In the video proper, I didn't describe how exactly Compile went into bankruptcy, but I think it has to do with a lot of their games at the time, their non-Puyo titles, not selling so well. A lot of their games didn't do so well in Japan, or if they did go abroad, they weren't selling so well abroad. And with their focus so squared in on Puyo, they pushed it way too hard, and as we see here in the video, it didn't quite work out for them in the long run.
As time went on, Compile's financial issues got worse and worse. Sega got control of the Puyo series in 1998, but Compile was still developing the games until their closure. Compile's swan song was Puyo Puyo Box, released in 2000, a giant celebration of Puyo, released almost as if to acknowledge that Compile was going under and they're going to go out with a bang. While considered a good game by those who have played it, Box wasn't enough to save Compile. From here on out, Sega would develop and publish Puyo Puyo titles. So, what happened to Compile after its closure? Many of the key staff would splinter off and start new companies. The shooter staff founded Milestone, who also went under. Puyo series creator Masamitsu Niitani founded Compile Maru, and the rest of Compile's old staff founded Compile Heart. You probably know them for developing the Neptunia series of games, but they also made a spiritual successor to Model Monogatari called Sorcery Saga, which is as close as we'll get to a new Model Monogatari game, and one officially localized.
Fun fact 1. A Puyo Puyo animated series was proposed, but it didn't get far off the ground, though there were a few animated shorts within the disc station releases. Fun fact 2. A Puyo Puyo theme park was proposed at one point. I don't think it got far off the ground, or someone was just thinking way too ahead of itself, but I think it would have turned out better than Euro Disneyland.
As for Sega's reign of Puyo Puyo, well, it isn't as interesting as Compile's reign. Sega and Sonic Team seemed content just to make modest games for a modest return. But unlike the series in the 90s, a fair amount of these games did make it stateside, such as 2 Puyo Pop games, several ports, a version of Puyo Puyo in Yakuza 6, and even one game for the N-Gage of all things. And that's probably the best way to go with a franchise like Puyo Puyo. Just make smaller games every now and again and shill some merchandise. And that's really all you need to do for a success. Sega also made Puyo Chronicles for mobile phones, which is, or at least used to be, one of Sega's most profitable games in Japan. Sega tried bringing over Puyo Chronicle as Cranky Food Friends, but that shit died faster than Dark Universe. In 2014, Sega released a Puyo Puyo crossover, a crossover with a little game known as Tetris. 2 flavors that go great together. Despite an abnormal amount of interest from fans abroad, it wasn't announced for localization. So why is that? I think the reason has to do with Ubisoft of all people, as at the time, Ubisoft had control of the Tetris brand for their own brand of shit known as Tetris Ultimate, and I gotta go on a rant here. This game was fucking terrible.
Seriously, Ubisoft, of all people, how? How do you ruin Tetris? How? It's just following blocks. And look at Tetris Ultimate, it was boring, and it was buggy. What kind of Tetris Ultimate is this? This is some bullshit. Ubisoft, you guys are just like... You guys are really, really, really the worst.
Whew. Got that out of my system. Sega did manage to sneak Puyo Puyo Tetris into Western territories, thanks to a technicality. You see, when Ubisoft inked that contract for the Tetris series, it didn't count for physical PlayStation 4 games or the Nintendo Switch. So with those little holes in Ubisoft's contract, Puyo Tetris got localized and it was a fairly modest hit. And that's really it with Sega's era of Puyo Puyo. I wish I had more to say, but Sega has treated Puyo better than some of their other series. I'm sure we'll see more ports and new games in the future. With Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 on the horizon, I'm sure it will do just fine and introduce many new gamers to the awesome sauce that is Puyo Puyo, and Tetris. You can't go wrong with either game.
So, there you go. There's the brief history of Puyo Puyo. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy series with a lot of games, but really, the only game you really need is Puyo Puyo 2. That game is, it's a good one, and I'm very sure that Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 will also do gangbusters for Sega and fans of the puzzle genre worldwide. So with that, I think I shall end the video. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about Puyo Puyo? Who's your favorite character? What's your favorite game in the series? What's your favorite puzzle game? Let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos. And make sure you're following me on Twitter, Instagram at Zmings. I'm very active on the Instagrams, doing a lot of shit posting over there. And if you like this video, why don't you check out my video on the history of Sakura Tyson? That was also a fun one. Anyway guys, take it easy, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you later.